The wind screamed across the white desert. Snow moved like smoke. The sun did not rise. The sky was a dark blue dome, with stars that looked close and cold. A small black camp stood on the flat ice, half buried and full of light. It was a NASA field station. It had steel containers, a drill tower, a generator that hummed, and a short flag that snapped and cracked in the air. Inside the main container, the heater worked hard. The room smelled like hot plastic and coffee. 4 people watched a wall of screens. Lines, numbers, and radar maps slid across the glass. Dr. Aisha Khan leaned closer to the largest screen. She was a geophysicist with calm eyes. Her hands were steady even when the station shook under the wind. She tapped the screen and frowned. "Again," she said. Miguel Ramos, the radar tech, rubbed his eyes and ran the sweep again. The signal returned. A grid of bright points formed under the ice. It was at 2 miles depth. It was neat. It was straight. It was wrong. Commander David Rourke stood behind them with his arms crossed. He was tall, with a scar on his cheek and a quiet voice. He had spent years in cold places and war zones. He trusted instruments more than words. "Show me overlays," he said. Aisha switched views. The ice-penetrating radar made a slice through the earth. The slice showed layers like pages. Natural ice was messy. It had waves and curves, but in the middle of that a shape appeared. It was a hexagon. It had equal sides. It had a hollow center. A tunnel seemed to lead in from the west. The lines were too clean to be nature. Zoe Chen, the medical officer who hated sitting still, walked in with 2 steaming mugs. She saw the screen and stopped. "That is not a cave," she said. "That is a building." "No human building is there," Miguel said softly. "There is nothing here for 1,000 miles. Aisha looked at the timestamp. The reflection was strong. It pulsed every 12 minutes like a slow heartbeat. She opened the magnetometer data. A faint field change matched the pulse. Something down there woke and slept in a rhythm. "Commander," Rourke called Houston on the satlink. The signal bounced on the upper air and came back thin. He gave a short report. "We have a regular geometry at 3,300 feet, he said. "Radar shows internal voids, magnetic drift, in cycle. Request go to drill." The voice from Houston crackled. "Weather window is 30 hours. After that, the storm hits. If you drill, you commit." Rourke looked at his team. They were tired, but their eyes were bright. He looked at the radar shape again. "We commit," he said. "We did not come here to watch lines on a screen. There was a simple plan. Use the hot water drill to make a borehole above the structure. Drop a microprobe called Sparrow on a fiber line. If the probe found a cavity, map it, then decide next steps." They moved fast. Miguel checked the power couplings and the hose reels. Zoe packed emergency kits and thermal blankets near the drill hut. Aisha ran path calculations to predict ice stress and borehole drift. Rourke walked the site in the cutting wind and checked tie-downs. He liked to feel the real world under his boots. He kicked a frozen cable and nodded to himself. When the drill started, steam rose in a tall white column. The hose fed hot water into the earth, and the earth gave way. The borehole opened a straight path down. The pump motors roared. The station shook again, but this time not from the wind. It shook from work. Hours passed. The wind outside went from bad to worse. The sky turned almost black. Ice dust blew like ash. Inside the drill hut, the noise was steady and the light was warm. The team took turns at the console. On a small screen, Aisha watched crude sonar from the borehole. There was ice, 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 and then a soft echo that did not look like ice. "Depth 2 miles, Miguel said. His voice was careful. "Approaching target layer." The sonar showed a thin gap. It was only a foot thick, maybe less. It ran flat under the ice sheet. It should not be there, but it was. Under the gap, the returning signal was strong and smooth, like it hit a sheet of glass. "Stop drill," Rourke said. "Hold pressure. Let the hole stabilize." They waited. The sound of the pumps fell to a low growl. The borehole water cooled a little. The fiber spool sat ready. On the bench lay the Sparrow, a palm-sized titanium cylinder with 3 tiny fins, a fisheye camera, a light ring, and a sensor nose. It looked like a toy. It was not a toy. Aisha clipped the fiber to the Sparrow. She looked at the others. "We send it now," she said. Rourke nodded once. "Send it." Aisha lowered the probe into the borehole. The fiber glided over the wheel. On the monitor, the image was only black water and small bubbles rising. Depth readouts ticked down. 400 meters, 800, 1,000. The camera adjusted to the dark. At one point, they saw strange flecks in the water. The flecks moved against the flow like dust that swam. "Mineral," Miguel said, but his voice did not sound sure. The probe passed the last ice layer. The pressure number went up. The light ring brightened. "Contact layer in 3 meters," Aisha whispered. The Sparrow touched the thin gap. The video flared with scatter, then cleared. A shimmer passed in front of the lens. It looked like heat above a road, but they were 2 miles under the coldest land on Earth. The probe fell through. The team leaned closer to the screen. The image showed an open space. The camera auto-leveled. The light ring swept across a smooth surface. It was not ice, it was not rock. It was dark and reflective like black stone or metal. Fine lines crossed it in a pattern, like a circuit board from a dream. Zoe forgot to breathe. "Oh my God," she said, and then laughed at her own voice. Aisha guided the Sparrow to hover a hand's width above the surface. The pressure there was stable, as if the cavity held its own air, its own rules. The sensor readout said the temperature was 5 degrees, but it did not drop further. The air content was strange, not deadly, but different enough to make her heart race. She tilted the camera up. The light ring caught a wall. The wall curved away in a perfect arc. Along the arc were inlaid shapes that glowed a soft blue when the light touched them. The shapes were triangles and circles and a square that seemed to shift into another shape when she stared at it too long. "Houston," Rourke said into the radio. "We have a man-made or non-natural cavity, smooth surfaces, symbols. We are recording. Copy." The voice said, very quiet now. "Keep the probe safe. Do not lose it." A soft sound came through the speakers then. It was not the drill. It was not the wind. It was a tone, low and gentle, like a single note from a giant instrument. The sensors picked a new pulse. The 12-minute cycle shortened to 6. Aisha turned the Sparrow toward the source. The floor pattern ran like lines to a round structure. It was a door or a hatch or something like that. It sat flush with the floor. It had no handle. It had a ring of those soft blue symbols around it. Miguel zoomed the image. One symbol brightened more than the others, like it heard them. The ma tone rose by a little, then fell. "Do not touch," Rourke said at once. "No contact. Observe only." Aisha did not touch. She let the light ring sweep over the ring of symbols in a slow circle. As the light moved, the blue grew brighter, following the motion. The tone changed again. It was not random. It was a reply. "Whatever this is," Zoe said, almost whispering, "it knows we are here." On the drill console, a small alarm flashed. Tether interference. Static flickered across the video. The picture broke into squares and came back. The tone grew louder. The 12-minute rhythm was gone now. The pulses flowed like breath. Houston spoke again. Fast now. "Team, mark and withdraw the probe. Repeat, withdraw the probe. Storm is moving faster than forecast. We cannot risk loss." Rourke looked at the screens. He looked at the deep black shape on the floor that might be a door. He made the fast choice that leaders make. Aisha pulled a safe hover and back to whole mouth. Aisha lifted the Sparrow. The door stayed quiet for 1 second. Then a line of blue lit up across its face. The line split like an eye opening. The tone stopped. Silence filled the speakers, heavy and full. The ring of symbols turned white. The door opened a crack. No steam came out. No gas burst. Only a very soft light, like dawn under water. Something moved in that light. It was not a shape they knew. It was not a hand or a tool. It was a pattern that folded and unfolded, like a flower made of geometry. The video cut to black. For one frozen heartbeat, they all thought the probe had died. Then the image came back in a wash of static. The crack in the door was wider now. The light inside was steady and pale. The tone returned as a new melody, thin as a thread, and full of meaning none of them could name. Isha's voice was small and full of awe. "It is opening for us." Rourke did not blink. He felt the cold even inside the warm room. He felt the weight of the ice above them, the age of the dark below. He also felt something else: human stubbornness, human hunger, the thing that pushes, explores forward when reason says stop. "Record everything," he said. "Hold position." The storm closed its fist around the surface camp. Wind pressed on the walls like a heavy hand. The generator throbbed. Snow hissed through every seam. Inside, the team watched the screen where the underground door glowed like a pale eye in the dark. Houston's voice came thin and strict. "Withdraw the probe and secure for weather." Commander Rourke met 3 pairs of eyes. He heard the storm. He also heard the soft tone from 2 miles below, steady as a breath. He made the call. "We take one look from inside, then we pull back. No hero moves. Aisha rides, Miguel on tethers, Zoe on vitals." They did not argue. They moved. The Sparrow probe rose to the roof of the cavity and held there, a small star over a black floor. Miguel locked the fiber spool. Aisha climbed into the thermal descent pod. It was a narrow tube made for ice work, a one-person craft with a clear nose and a ring of lamps. Its nickname was Icicle. The Icicle carried a small tank of breathable mix, a rebreather, and a simple seat with belts. It had no luxury. It had a steel skin and trust. Zoe checked Aisha's suit seals and clipped a medical cuff on her wrist. "If the air down there is wrong, you keep your mask on," she said. "If anything feels strange, you say it." Aisha smiled without showing teeth. "I will say it." Miguel ran a last systems test. The tether read strong. The pod cameras gave clean images. The descent brakes worked. He nodded once to himself. "Pod is green." Rourke leaned in the hatch. "This is a touch and see. We do not get greedy." Aisha put her gloved hand on the inside of the clear nose. She looked past it at the borehole in the floor, a black circle rimmed with frost. The Icicle rolled forward, on small rails lifted by the hoist, and dropped into the shaft. The hatch sealed above her. The camp vanished. The world became a round tunnel of dark water and ice. "Descent," Miguel said. The hoist hummed. The tether unwound in a smooth ribbon. Aisha felt the first meter slide by. The walls of the hole were slick and glassy from hot water. Tiny bubbles rose past her lamp ring like silver dust. Now and then, she saw the flecks they had seen before, the ones that moved against the flow. They did not look like life. They looked like thoughts that had lost their bodies. The numbers ticked. 50 meters, 100, 200. The storm noise faded. The only sounds were the hoist above, her own soft breath, and that tone through the comms, a low sound that made her chest feel calm. "Readings are stable," Zoe said in her ear. "Heart rate normal. Oxygen normal." "Copy," Aisha said. Her voice felt small in the narrow shell. The Icicle passed through old ice that had slept since before cities. It held trapped air from long ages. It held dust from fires that ended before names. The lamps made that history shine and then vanish. At 800 meters, the wall showed faint lines like scratches. At 1,000, there was a darker band, a mark of a buried storm. At 1,500, the flecks grew denser and the water felt thinner. She could not see that, but she felt it, like the volume of a room changing when a door opens. "Approaching. Target layer," Miguel said. His voice was slow now, careful and exact. 50 meters. Aisha saw a shimmer ahead where the light bent wrong, The borehole passed through it. The camera picked streaks of light that did not come from her lamps. It felt like passing through a warm veil. "Contact. Now," Miguel said. The shimmer brushed the icicle. Her hair prickled under the helmet. Her tongue tasted metal and snow. The numbers on the panel flicked once and then settled. Temperature held at -5. Pressure held. The tone from below rose by a thin step, as if a finger touched a string. The icicle slid free into open space. Aisha's lamp ring showed a wide dome hollowed under the ice. A smooth floor like black glass stretched away. The sparrow hung above, its light like a small moon. The door lay ahead, a round seam with the ring of symbols, no longer blue but white, like frost seen by moonlight. "Cavity is real and stable," Aisha said. "I see the hatch." "Hold position and survey," Rourke said. He sounded calm, but the words came tight. The storm timer in his head was counting down. Aisha set the icicle down on the floor. The landing skids touched and made no sound. It felt like setting a cup on a thick rug. Her lamps showed lines running in the floor, thin as hairs crossing and joining and parting. They were not random. They formed paths, like streets in a city seen in the dark. She opened the small side hatch. Her suit breathed. Air touched her faceplate with a soft sigh. She tasted it through the filter. It was cold and clean and slightly sweet, like snow in a stone cup. She stepped out and felt gravity answer, a little lighter than on the surface. Her boots did not slip. The floor had a grip like a friendly hand. "Do you hear that?" Zoe asked in her ear. The tone. "I hear it," Aisha said. It came from the door, a gentle note that shifted by slow degrees. She walked toward it with slow steps so she would not fall if the rules changed. The icicle's lamp ring sent shadows like circles under her feet. The ring of symbols looked like a crown. She kept her gloves to herself. She did not touch. She only moved the light. The first symbol brightened and dimmed with her breath. The second grew bright when her heart sped and then grew soft when she calmed. The third looked like a square and then changed shape when she blinked, as if it did not want to be named yet. Miguel spoke, not hiding the awe anymore. "It is reacting to your body signals." Aisha stopped one step away. "If it is a lock, it does not want a hand. It wants a pattern." Rourke said, "No contact, Aisha." "I will not touch," she said. She set a small laser rangefinder on the floor and let it scan across the hatch seam. The beam came back late, as if the edge was more length than the eye could see. Not broken, not open, not fully closed either. The crack from earlier was there, and a light still glowed inside, soft as dawn. The tone rose. A second tone joined, thin and high. The two tones made a chord that felt like home even though it was not a human song. The white ring brightened. Lines in the floor lit up and ran out from the hatch to 4 points around the dome, marking a cross no one had drawn. A small vibration moved through the floor and up into Aisha's boots. It felt like a cat walking past your leg in the dark. She took one step back and then held still. On the icicle camera, the dome's curve showed faint marks. When Miguel lifted the gain, those marks became panels. When he lifted more, the panels became a slow film. The dome was inside a screen, and the screen woke. Images formed there like frost making pictures. They were simple first: a circle for a planet, a small dot for a moon, a spiral for a star. Then they became maps. A white cap at the top of the planet, a white cap at the bottom. Lines crawled like rivers under ice. "Earth," Zoe whispered. The map zoomed to the south. The white cap spread across the screen. A soft point pulsed where they stood. Then more points lit in other places. Deep under another ice cap, far under an ocean trench, under a desert that had been a sea long ago. One by one they blinked like slow heartbeat lamps. "How many sites?" Rourke asked. Miguel counted aloud, voice hushed. 9, 12, 16. More. A new line of symbols appeared above the map. They shifted until the team could almost read them. The shapes did not become letters. They became meaning. 4 word ideas formed and held like stones you can stand on. Seed, watch, protect, invite. What does invite mean here? Zoe said. Aisha looked at the ring again. The first symbol shone steady now. The second flickered once, as if waiting for a reply. She did not lift a hand. She only breathed and watched the light rise and fall with her chest. The ring answered. A slow, clear voice came into her helmet. It was not a voice made of a throat. It was a voice born from the cord, bent into sounds the human ear could understand. It spoke in English, but not in any one accent. It sounded like many voices braided together. Dr. Aisha Khan, it said. Welcome. All 3 people in the hut went silent. The only sound for a moment was the wind over the world above them. Rourke's hand closed into a fist and then opened again. How does it know your name? He asked. Aisha's mouth went dry. I did not tell it. She looked for a trick. Her suit tag? The pod ID? But the voice had the rhythm of her name the way her mother said it when she was small. The map on the dome shifted again. The white cap peeled back like a lid. Under it, lines of old currents moved and then stopped. A countdown appeared on the edge of the image. It was not numbers. It was 4 symbols shrinking in time with the cord. When the smallest reached the size of a grain of rice, it paused. The ring around the hatch warmed through her boots. The crack grew wider by the width of a fingernail. The pale light inside swelled. The tone held steady, waiting. Team, Houston said, their voice suddenly back, harsh with static. Storm is here now, you have minutes. Pull back or you will lose lift and you will freeze in. Rourke did not look away from the screen. His voice was soft and strong. Aisha, mark everything and retreat to the pod. Aisha took 1 step, back. The ring dimmed as if disappointed. The countdown on the dome brightened as if to say, not yet, not yet. In the open crack inside the hatch, something moved again. Not a hand, not a machine, a pattern like folded light, opening and closing like breath. She felt the urge to go forward as strong as hunger. She also felt the rope that tied her to the living people above. She lifted her foot for the second step back. Wait, the voice said, and the single word was a cord played inside her bones. Successor. The clear nose of the icicle caught her own face in reflection for a heartbeat. In that face she saw cold fear and deep wonder. She lowered her foot. She did not go forward. She did not run. She stood exactly where she was, and the ring of symbols shone like a quiet crown in winter. The storm above swallowed the camp. Antennas bent. Snow covered the rails. The generator fought like an old beast in the cold. Yet deep under 2 miles of ice, the station did not shake. The walls down there were too steady, too old, and too patient. Inside the dome, Aisha stood frozen between retreat and wonder. The voice that spoke her name still echoed in her helmet. The hatch waited. The pale light within did not dim. It was soft and alive like dawn trapped under glass. Mark and withdraw, Commander Rourke repeated. His words were firm, but a thread of hesitation clung to them. He had seen wars, he had seen ruins, but he had never seen something that called, a human by name across centuries of silence. Aisha breathed slowly and the white ring of symbols pulsed with her breath. She felt the weight of history pressing from both above and below. Still, she turned and walked back to the icicle pod. Her boots tapped lightly on the black floor, and the sound carried like a bell in the dome. She climbed inside, sealed the hatch, and gave a last look at the door. The crack glowed. The folded light moved, not rushing, not forcing. It was like a creature that trusted she would return. She whispered without knowing why. I will. The icicle rose, pulled by the hoist. The shimmer layer brushed her pod, again. Her skin tingled. The tone faded behind her like a lullaby carried away by wind. She felt heavy again, the true weight of Earth pressing down. Soon the pod broke into the drill shaft air and cold surface noise filled her ears. The hatch opened. Zoe's hands pulled her out with force. Her eyes were wide with both fear and hope. "You are late," she said, though Aisha had only been gone minutes. Miguel cut the tether and checked the cable with shaking hands. Rourke stood by the hatch and looked past her, as if he could still see through 2 miles of ice. Above them the storm screamed, but inside the hut they knew something. Louder had begun. They did not sleep. They watched the recording again and again. The voice, the light, the map, the word successor. It did not feel random. It felt chosen. Houston tried to cut their mission short. "Storm is too strong. We are dispatching recall order. Hold until transport." But the transport would not come until skies cleared, and storms in Antarctica did not listen to clocks. For days they might be trapped. The only direction open to them was down. Commander Rourke made the choice no one else dared to say. "We descend as a team." Zoe looked ready to argue, but she saw the same truth he had. Their camp was buried. The station below was alive. Waiting was not safety. Waiting was death by cold. Going down was risk, but also shelter, perhaps even purpose. So they prepared. The icicle was too small for 4. They cut a second shaft with the drill, wider and slower. They lined it with steel, tubes carried in pieces. It was hard work in the storm, but it gave them a ladder, a true throat through the ice. By the second night, they were ready. They wore thermal suits, oxygen masks, and light rigs. They carried cameras, small sensors, and a few tools, though none of them trusted tools against what they would face. Rourke carried a compact weapon, a simple sidearm, more for nerves than for use. The descent was slow. Their lamps glowed against ice that had never known fire. Their breaths fogged inside masks. Every rung of the ladder shook in the storm's echo. Then the shimmer came, that veil of wrong light. They passed through, one by one, and the world changed. They landed inside the dome together. Their lamps lit the black floor. The white ring of the hatch was still awake. The map above their heads flickered once, then cleared. This time it showed Earth's surface not as it was, but as it had been. Green forests where now there was desert, seas where now there was ice. The symbols read different words. Grow, watch, wait, return. Return, Miguel said softly. His breath shook. Return to what? The ring of symbols pulsed brighter, and the hatch opened wider. The crack became a door. A rush of air flowed out, but it was not violent. It was cool and still, carrying a scent like stone dust and something older like rain on rock before plants. The pale light spread and formed a path inside. Rourke raised his hand. No one runs. We stay close. If we move as one. They stepped through. The passage beyond the hatch was vast. The walls were black stone metal, smooth as water frozen in place. Blue veins of light traced patterns along them, curving, like rivers branching like trees. Their lamps were not needed. The station lit itself, waking for guests who had been gone too long. Zoe touched a wall lightly with her gloved finger. It felt warm, not hot, not cold, like skin. She pulled her hand back with a gasp. The light vein under her touch pulsed once and then spread outward like ripples. It feels alive, she whispered. The corridor led them to a chamber larger than any hall humans had ever built. A ceiling arched so high it faded into shadows. Towers of crystal stood in rows, each humming with faint light. The air was calm, stable, as if no storm could ever enter here. Miguel pointed to the towers. They are not decoration, they are data. This is storage. He walked closer and saw shapes inside each crystal, images frozen like film reels, cities that were not human, skies with 2 moons, oceans under strange suns. Each tower was a library of memory. One tower near the path flickered. It showed Earth. Not the Earth of maps, but Earth alive with pulses of color. Energy lines ran from poles to equator, circling the planet. It was as if Earth itself was one of their machines. Are we part of their design? Zoe asked, her voice trembling. Are we just a project? No one answered. The silence was heavy. They moved deeper. At the far end of the chamber, a platform rose. On it stood a shape like a throne, but no one sat. Instead, a sphere floated above it. The sphere turned slowly, black at first, then transparent, then glowing with shifting symbols. It pulsed in time with their hearts. The voice came again, now not in helmets but in the chamber itself. It spoke like wind and water. Successors of Earth, the seed has grown. The watch is complete. The return begins. The crew stood frozen. Aisha felt her knees weaken. She wanted to speak, but her throat was tight. At last she whispered, "What do you want from us?" The sphere brightened, and the voice said one word, sharp and final: "Choice." The lights of the station flared. The crystals all around them lit with alien stars and human oceans. The path behind them closed. The path ahead opened. The choice was not between leaving and staying. The choice was far larger. It was a choice that would decide whether Earth would rise into the galaxy or be crushed by it. And for the first time, the NASA crew felt not like explorers, but like judges of an ancient plan. The chamber of crystal towers was no longer silent. The walls vibrated like a giant heart starting to beat. The floating sphere above the platform grew brighter, its surface shifting between black stone, clear glass, and flowing light. "Choice," it had said. The word still hung in the air, heavy and sharp. Commander Rourke stood tall, his face pale, but steady. His instincts screamed danger, yet his mind told him they had stepped into something far older than war. He raised his voice, strong and clear. "We came here by accident. We do not understand your design. Why us?" The sphere pulsed, and the towers answered. Images flickered inside them like living mirrors. Ancient seas boiling, stars collapsing, cities of glass standing under 3 suns, and finally Earth, green, blue, fragile. The voice came again, many layers folded into one. Seed was given, growth observed, protectors absent. Now you choose. Continue, or end. Zoe clutched her mask tighter. Her heart pounded. End what? End us? End Earth? The crystal nearest. Her flared. It showed a human figure, not real, but formed from light. The figure knelt, then stood, then spread arms like wings. Behind it, alien symbols turned into flames. The meaning was unclear, but the weight was heavy. Aisha's scientific mind ran fast. She saw the rhythm of pulses, the links between tones, the way the symbols shifted with their presence. This was not just a message. It was an interface. The station was not talking to them. It was measuring them. Testing them. Miguel backed toward the door, his voice shaking. "We should go. We should not be here. This is not ours." But the door behind them sealed with a smooth hiss. The pale crack closed like an eye going blind. Their way back was gone. The sphere changed color. From soft white it turned to deep red, then to gold. The air grew warmer. The cord that filled the chamber broke into 3 tones, rising, weaving, pressing into their skulls until each heartbeat matched the rhythm. Aisha gasped. Her wrist monitor beeped fast. Zoe's vitals spiked too. Miguel dropped to his knees, holding his head. Only Rourke stood firm, though sweat ran down his neck. He shouted, "Enough! Stop this!" The tones fell silent. The red faded. The sphere turned clear again. For a moment silence returned. Then the floor moved. The black glass split into paths of light. 4 lines formed under their feet, leading away into shadowed corridors. Each line glowed a different color: blue, green, red, gold. The voice came, again softer, patient. "Choose path, prove worth. Only then awaken," Zoe whispered. "It wants us to split." Rourke shook his head. "No, that is how people get killed."